February 1943. Naval Air Station, Jacksonville, Florida. The air smells of burnt oil and salt. Beneath a gray morning sky, a group of young naval aviators stand beside a hulking blue fighter with wings folded up like a bird at rest. Its nose is long and predatory, its canopy bulbous, its fuselage thick, awkwardly so. Lieutenant John Jack Carlisle, 22, fresh from flight school, circles it with a skeptical grin. "They call this thing the flying barrel," he mutters. "Looks more like a torpedo with wings." The aircraft before him is the Vought F4U Corsair, the Navy's newest attempt to build a carrier-based fighter that could outfly and outgun the Japanese Zero. It's fast, record-breaking fast, but ugly. With its bent gull wings and massive propeller, it looks like something that shouldn't even get off the ground. A mechanic, his hands blackened from exhaust residue, slaps the fuselage proudly. She'll climb like a devil and dive like a rock, but watch her temper. She likes to kill green pilots. Jack raises an eyebrow. Kill pilots? "Yeah," the mechanic says. "They call it the Ensign Eliminator for a reason." When Jack finally climbs into the cockpit, the world around him seems to disappear behind the monstrous nose. The engine, a Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, snarls to life with 2,000 horsepower of barely contained fury. The aircraft shudders, tail twitching as if alive. He taxis toward the runway. The instructor's voice crackles in his headset. "Remember, Lieutenant, don't fight her. Respect her." The throttle opens. The Corsair leaps forward, but as the tail lifts, it veers sharply left, torque pulling it toward the ground. Jack wrestles with the stick, overcorrects, and nearly skids off the runway. He recovers, barely, his heart pounding. Up in the control tower, one instructor shakes his head. "Another one almost bought it," he mutters. "That damned nose blocks everything on landing. You can't see the deck until it's too late." That problem, visibility and control on carrier landings, will soon get the Corsair banned from carrier decks altogether. Meanwhile, halfway across the Pacific, Japanese pilots in their Mitsubishi A6M Zeros are laughing. Reports have reached Rabaul and Truk. The new American fighter is too heavy, too clumsy, and unfit for naval combat. One ace, Lieutenant Saburo Sakai, reportedly quipped, "The Americans have built a cannon with wings. If it can't land, we won't have to shoot it down." What no one yet knows, not the Americans struggling to tame it, nor the Japanese who mock it, is that the flying barrel will soon become the deadliest bird in the Pacific sky. April 1943. Naval Air Station, San Diego, California. The Corsairs sit in a long, gleaming row beside the Pacific, wings folded, salt wind rattling through their fuselages. Mechanics in denim coveralls swarm them, wiping down oil leaks and tightening bolts. But the mood on the tarmac isn't pride, it's frustration. Lieutenant Commander Harvey "Pappy" Donovan, a veteran test pilot with 2 carrier tours under his belt, pulls off his flight cap and slams it against the wing of his Corsair. "She's a widowmaker," he growls. "I've flown Wildcats, Hellcats, hell, even that Brewster Buffalo, and none of them tried to throw me into the sea every time I hit the deck." His words echo the sentiment up and down the Navy's test units. The Corsair's landing behavior is treacherous. Its long nose obscures the flight deck during final approach, forcing pilots to descend at an angle and guess their alignment. The landing gear, designed for speed, is stiff. It doesn't absorb the shock well. More than one rookie pilot has bounced off the deck and into the water. In Washington, the Bureau of Aeronautics finally makes it official. The F4U is grounded from carrier duty. It's a humiliation for Vought and the Navy alike. After all, This was supposed to be the Navy's next great fighter, the one to dethrone Japan's Zero. Instead, the Corsair is relegated to land-based operations. The Hellcat, slower but stable, will take the carrier war forward. But the Marines see something the Navy doesn't. That same month, at a small airstrip carved out of coral on Espiritu Santo, the Marine Corps takes delivery of their first shipment of F4Us. The men of Marine Fighter Squadron 124, VMF 124, stare at them with a mix of awe and uncertainty. These are the planes no one else wants. The misfits for the misfits. Captain William Wild Bill Ecker runs his hand along the curved leading edge of one wing. "Looks mean," he says. "Flies meaner," replies the mechanic. The Marines don't care about carrier landings. Their runways are dirt, coral, or jungle strip. What they do care about is survival. And when Ecker's squadron takes the Corsair into combat for the first time over Bougainville in February 1943, they discover something the Navy never could: speed, climb, power. The Corsair can dive faster, accelerate harder, and turn tighter than the Zero above 20,000 feet. It can take punishment. Bullet holes through wings, oil spraying across the canopy, and still bring its pilot home. In the ready room that night, after their first dogfight, the pilots can hardly believe it. "The Zeros tried to climb," one says, shaking his head, "but they just fell behind." Another grins. "They called it a barrel, but it flies like a bullet." Within weeks, the Marines' kill tallies rise. The once unlandable fighter begins earning a reputation as the deadliest American aircraft in the Pacific. And while the Navy writes it off as a failed experiment, the Corsair's legend quietly begins to take shape. Born not on carrier decks, but from jungle runways and coral airstrips where Marines fight tooth and nail for every island in the Pacific chain. August 1943, Munda Airfield, Solomon Islands. The sun beats down hard on the coral runway, heat waves rising like ghosts. In the distance, a column of black smoke twists up from the jungle. Another Japanese ammunition dump hit by Marine artillery. Captain William Wild Bill Ecker crouches in the shadow of his Corsair, tightening the strap on his flight boot. The paint on his aircraft is faded and scorched, its wingtips dusted white from salt spray. On the side of the nose, a mechanic has scrawled "Angel of Munda" in crude white paint. He climbs into the cockpit, the metal hot under his hands. His crew chief gives a thumbs up. Ecker snaps his oxygen mask into place, flips the magneto switch, and the engine explodes to life, a rolling, thunderous snarl that echoes off the trees. The propeller's wash kicks dust into spirals. "Tower, this is Angel 1, he radios, requesting clearance for patrol. "Angel 1, you're clear. Watch for bogies near Kolombangara." He taxis down the strip, throttles up, and the Corsair surges forward like an unleashed beast. The bent gull wings bite the air, and in seconds, he's airborne, the jungle falling away beneath him. At altitude, the familiar whine fills his headset. That distinctive sound made by air flowing through the wing root intakes. The Japanese have a name for it: whistling death. Within an hour, Ecker spots them, a formation of A6M-Zeros heading north. Their canopies glint like fish scales in the morning light. He pushes the stick forward, dropping into a shallow dive. The Corsair howls as it descends, the Merlins scream building until it drowns out the thought itself. 2 o'clock high, his wingman shouts. They see us. The Zeros bank sharply, climbing to meet them, agile as ever. But the Corsair is faster, brutally so. Ecker yanks the stick back, pulling into a climbing roll. His G-suit tightens around his legs as he loops over the lead Zero. He squeezes the trigger. 6 .50 caliber Brownings erupt in fire. Tracers tear through the sky and rip into the Zero's fuselage. The enemy fighter bursts into flame and tumbles earthward. Below, the jungle canopy swallows it whole. Another Zero cuts across Ecker's tail. His wingman, Lieutenant Charlie Dunn, dives in behind it. "Got him!" Dunn yells, firing a burst that shreds the Japanese plane's wing clean off. The dogfight lasts less than 3 minutes. 4 Zeros destroyed. No Corsairs lost. When they land back at Munda, the ground crews cheer. The Marines gather around the dusty airstrip, watching the planes roll in. Someone claps Ecker on the back. "They say the Japs don't laugh at her anymore," a mechanic says, nodding toward the Corsair's battered wings. Ecker removes his helmet, sweat dripping down his face. "No," he says quietly, staring at the horizon where the smoke of burning planes still hangs. Now they just listen for the whistle. By the end of 1943, that whistle will become a sound every Japanese pilot fears. The ghostly wail of death descending from the sky. February 1944. Roy Namur, Marshall Islands. The air smells of salt, cordite, and burned coral. The battle for the Marshalls has ended, but the airfield still shakes with the echoes of war. Rows of F4U Corsairs sit lined along the tarmac, wings folded upward like sentinels. Each bears the marks of combat. Chipped paint, bullet scars, kill markings painted beneath the cockpits. Captain Joe Foss, Marine Ace and Medal of Honor recipient, walks past the row of aircraft, stopping to rest a hand on the cowling of his own Corsair. "We used to fly Wildcats," he says to a young replacement pilot beside him. "Then we got these?" He grins faintly. "Now we own the sky." The new arrivals are still wary of the Corsair's reputation. They've heard the stories, the crashes, the botched landings, the pilots who never came home. But the veterans know better now. The Corsair has gone from a curse to a legend. Foss turns toward the runway, where 2 planes are taking off in tandem, their massive propellers clawing at the air. "Watch them," he says. "The trick is not to fight her. You let her fly herself." Overhead, a squadron of Corsairs forms up. 12 dark silhouettes against the blue. Their call signs crackle across the radio. Black Sheep Squadron, rolling north. At their head is Major Gregory Pappy Boyington, the hard-drinking, hard-fighting commander of VMF 214, already a legend in the Pacific. His Corsair, blackened by exhaust and patched with tape, carries the white number 86 on the fuselage. "All right, boys," Boyington says over the radio, his voice steady and amused. "Let's go wake up Rabaul." The formation sweeps low across the ocean, sun glinting off canopies. Minutes later, the volcanic sprawl of Rabaul appears on the horizon, Japan's fortress in the South Pacific. Anti-aircraft bursts bloom like black flowers around them. Boyington grins. "Flak's heavy today. Must mean we're close." They dive through the smoke, Corsairs screaming downward in perfect formation. Machine guns blaze as they rake airfields, fuel depots, and parked bombers. Explosions ripple across the base. From the Japanese towers, gunners shout and fire blindly into the sky. A Zero rises from the smoke, trying to climb into Boyington's tail. The Major rolls his Corsair sharply, cutting across the enemy's line. His 6 guns roar. The Zero disintegrates midair, wings shearing off, the fuselage spiraling into the jungle below. "Scratch one more," Boyington says calmly. By the end of the day, the Black Sheep Squadron claims a dozen kills for the loss of 1 damaged plane. When they return to base, The ground crews count the bullet holes in Boyington's wings and shake their heads. "She's more whole than airplane," one mechanic says. But the Corsair still flies. Always flies. Across the Pacific, the legend spreads of the bent wing bird that can dive faster than sound seems to travel, that can twist through flak and climb like a hawk. The Japanese begin to recognize its profile instantly. Pilots report its silhouette, broad wings, long nose, and the chilling sound it makes in a dive. The Americans' black-winged demon, one Japanese intelligence officer writes in his logbook. It comes screaming down from the clouds, faster than a man can breathe, faster than fear itself. By 1944, that fear is well earned. The Corsair's kill ratio soars above 11-1. June 1944. Majuro Atoll, Pacific Ocean. The sky is clear, the sea impossibly blue. On the deck of the USS Bunker Hill, sailors move in choreographed precision, refueling hoses, arming belts, and loading rockets under wings that gleam in the sunlight. The carrier hums with controlled tension as it prepares for another strike against the Marianas. At the end of the flight deck, a row of F4U Corsairs waits with canopies open, their pilots climbing aboard. Among them is Lieutenant J.G. Frank Wadley, a Navy pilot, not a Marine. It's a sight that would have been unthinkable a year ago. The Corsair, once banned from carriers and mockingly dubbed the Ensign Eliminator, has finally returned to the sea. The solution wasn't magic. It was mastery. Months of modification and relentless training taught pilots how to land the beast. A longer tailhook, raised pilot seat, and revised landing gear all helped. But it was the men themselves, those who refused to give up on her, who made the difference. Now, as the deck crew gives the signal, Wadley throttles forward. The Merlin engine screams, the Corsair surges down the wooden deck and lifts cleanly into the air, climbing fast and steady. Over the radio, his flight leader calls out, "Blue Squadron, form up. Let's show them the Widowmaker knows how to dance." Far below, the Bunker Hill's wake curls white against the ocean, a tiny thread in an endless blue. An hour later, Wadley's squadron approaches Guam. The coastline burns with the scars of naval bombardment. Palm trees sheared, bunkers cratered. Anti-aircraft bursts blacken the sky. "Targets ahead," the leader calls. "Let's make it quick." Wadley dives. The Corsair howls as its gull wings slice through the flak. He fires a burst of rockets into a camouflaged gun battery. The explosion sends dust and flame bursting skyward. He pulls up sharply, G-forces crushing him into the seat. A 0 flashes across his nose, close enough to see the red circle on its wings. Instinct takes over. He rolls right, drops throttle, and yanks hard left. The Corsair groans but obeys. The 0 overshoots. Wadley squeezes the trigger. 6 streams of fire converge. The Japanese fighter disintegrates midair. "Got one," he shouts. "She flies like a dream now." Back aboard the carrier, as the last Corsair traps perfectly on deck, the aircrew cheers. The flight deck smells of burnt rubber and hot metal. The once feared fighter has come home, not as a liability, but as the Navy's prized workhorse. From that moment, the Corsair becomes the dominant fighter of the Pacific, flying for both Marines and Navy pilots alike. It escorts bombers, destroys enemy ships, and duels Zeros from Okinawa to the Philippines. Even the Japanese, once dismissive, now speak of it with grudging respect. In captured diaries, Allied intelligence finds the same description again and again. The Blue Demon from the sea. By war's end, the F4U Corsair racks up over 2,000 aerial victories with fewer than 200 losses. a kill ratio unmatched by any other American fighter. But for the men who flew her, the numbers mean less than the feeling. The way the plane seemed alive beneath them, wild and loyal all at once. Major Pappy Boyington, who ends the war as the Marine Corps' top ace, puts it best during a final interview in 1945. She tried to kill us when we were learning her, but once you earned her trust, there wasn't a plane in the sky that could touch her. The flying barrel, the whistling death, the Ensign Eliminator. Whatever name the world gave her, she wore it with pride. Because by the end of the war, one thing was certain. The Corsair didn't just rule the Pacific, she redeemed it.